What is going on, Pats Nation? It's Patriots Club here, back with another video, and in this one, we are going to be recapping each and every single day of the New England Patriots 2021 3-day mandatory minicamp. Now, I did cover each individual day here for OTAs also. Unfortunately, your boy, and I do apologize, has been busy over the last couple of days, so I have not been able to record and edit and upload individual videos for each of these days like I would have liked to do. But do not worry, because I'm going to be going through each and every single day, giving you the notes that we were given, also give you some of my thoughts, and then by the end of this video, if there's anything that I feel like I left out, any of my other thoughts on or consensus, I will let you guys know. But without further ado, let's just hop right into this. So, like I said, 3-day mandatory minicamp, back to back to back. This was, like I said, mandatory. It was not OTAs, where it is optional for you to show up. So basically, if you aren't there, you're either getting fined or you got an excuse from Bill Belichick. So to start off day one here, let's go with our absence, okay? Chase Winovich, Rashad Berry, Byron Cowart, Terez Hall, and Stephon Gilmore. Now, for the first day, Belichick did note that weather was a problem. I do believe that this was the first day, this actually was the day that there was torrential downpour. I mean, there was a storm coming through minicamp, and the guys were practicing through it. Of course, situational football. Belichick preaches the heck out of that. Belichick wasn't going to miss his opportunity. So he did note that some of the guys that were absent were due to the weather. He did say that, or not he, but the media did say that Devin Smith, Anthony Jennings, and Cameron McGrone were all present but did not participate. I do expect Cameron McGrone to be on IR and essentially not play this season, but I am very glad that, hey, he's not taking the route of just kind of chilling at home and learning the playbook. He's at practice. He wants to learn as much as he can mentally and get the physical part there when he is physically able to get on the field. Now, something to definitely monitor here is the fact that Jonnu Smith did not finish practice in his first appearance with the Patriots, because at some point they said that it seemed that he tweaked his left hamstring. And just in general, I'm not too pleased with Jonnu Smith as of yet. And look, it is still early on. Things can definitely change. He was the first free agent signing by the Patriots, and they signed him to, although a very similar contract to Hunter Henry, still a bigger contract than Hunter Henry. So it does show how they view him. But, I mean, him not showing up to optional OTAs at all, him also getting in late to the Patriots throwing session that Jarrett Stidham held, and then just getting into Massachusetts the day before, then getting injured. And before you got injured in your first practice with the team, you were struggling. Not a good look here so far for Jonnu. Now, the first day, the Patriots did have 2 players trying out. This is something that a lot of teams do during mandatory minicamp, and they have, players come in that they might potentially sign. One was a wide receiver, one was an offensive line. Those players were confirmed to be Devin Ross and RJ Prince. Now, those guys are not officially signed, but they were there for more than one day. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, rain was a huge factor in the first session of minicamp. It was consistently coming down, but the defense for at least day one of minicamp won with most of the reps when it came to 11-on-11s. Now, to move on to specifics for quarterbacks, for 11-on-11s, Cam Newton went 5 for 11, Mac Jones went 6 for 12, Jarrett Stidham went 5 for 9, and Hoyer went 2 for 6 with an interception. For 7-on-7s, Cam Newton went 7 for 9, Mac Jones went 7 for 8, Jarrett Stidham went 2 for 6. Now, in team drills, Mac Jones took all of the second reps after Cam Newton, then Stidham, then Hoyer. Not really much of a surprise here. It's going Cam Newton as your starting quarterback, Mac Jones as the second, Jarrett Stidham as the third string, and Brian Hoyer as the fourth. Again, no surprise here. They said that Cam Newton did appear to struggle with most of the rainy conditions. This also isn't something that surprises me. When the Patriots played the Ravens this past season and beat them in the torrential downpour, it was a very run-heavy led offense. But it is worth noting that Newton was a full participant after being questioned with that hand injury. Mac Jones looked the best out of all the quarterbacks for day one and had the least amount of mistakes when it came to playing in the rain. Lots of accurate balls, whereas all of the other quarterbacks kind of had the ball sailing on them. Also, some good news for Mac Jones, as he wasn't being as conservative with the ball. He finally started pushing more down the field, looked more decisive, looked more quicker. Definitely something you like to see with Mac Jones going forward. It just very much seems like, when there's issues that he has, something he needs to work on, he puts it in this category of things he needs to work on, and it gets better for next time. Now, although Mac Jones was the best overall quarterback, Jarrett Stidham had the best throw of the day with a deep ball to Nelson Agholor, but unfortunately, Nelson Agholor did drop it. Moving on to the wide receivers, guys that had drops today: Nelson Agholor, Kendrick Bourne, Gunnar Olszewski, Isaiah Zuber, and Christian Wilkerson. Let's remember that it is in the rain, so guys are more prone to dropping the ball. Jacoby Myers had another very, very strong day, consistently very involved with very minimal mistakes. He could be a guy that is very much pushing to be the Patriots' #1 wide receiver for this upcoming season. Now, Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones are already making connections, as they made a really nice connected play where Mac Jones stepped up into the pocket and Bourne made a nice catch. N'Keal Harry did finally stand out in day one of minicamp. Nothing crazy, but just stood out a little bit more. He had a really impressive grab, though, where he boxed out a defensive back, high-pointed the ball, and came down with a contested grab. Reporters do also note that he looks lighter this year, so we'll see if, because he looks a little bit lighter, maybe he slimmed down a little, maybe he'll be lighter on his feet. Now, when it comes to the tight ends, there were two tight ends that dealt with a drop today: Jonnu Smith and Troy Fumagalli. Hunter Henry did come down with a nice grab on a corner route from Cam Newton, with Jackson and McCourty both in coverage. Again, it was noted that Jonnu Smith's movement ability is very noticeable and stands out very, very much amongst the tight ends that the Patriots have. That's what you love to hear, but something you don't love to hear is that he had a lot of issues catching the ball. Let's keep in mind that it was in the torrential downpour, and that definitely played a factor. But when you have that many drops, either way, it's definitely concerning. In team drills combined, he had a total of 5 drops. The starting offensive line from what we saw today was basically what you would expect. You have Isaiah Wynn at left tackle, Onwenu at left guard, Andrews at center, Mason at right guard, and Trent Brown at right tackle. For the defensive line, the pass rush once again stood out a ton. Josh Uche with another great session. Not surprised at all. As for the linebackers, Kyle Van Noy had an interception. As for the corners, pass breakup-wise, Jonathan Jones had one and D'Angelo Ross had one. With Stephon Gilmore holding out, obviously being absent, J.C. Jackson and Jalen Mills were the two starting corners, with Jalen Mills taking over at left cornerback for Stephon Gilmore. Now, Michael Jackson was factored in there a little bit, but for the most part, those were the two corners with Gilly Lock out. As for the safeties, pass breakups, Adrian Phillips had one, and then for special teams, Belichick was making it tough on the specialists towards the end of practice. Basically, overall, just doing Bill Belichick things. On their usual field goal drills towards, again, the end of practice, he soaked the ball in water despite it already raining, and also soaked Jake Bailey's hands with water, again, at the end of the day, trying to get down that situational football. All right, but moving on here for day 2. This is going to be 6/15, so June 15th, again, day 2 out of day 3. Absence, nothing too different from the first day. Chase Winovich absent yet again. This is going to be a continuous thing you're going to see through all of these mini camps. Rashad Berry also absent, Byron Cowart also absent, Terez Hall absent. No surprise here, Stephon Gilmore also absent. Now, Devin Smith, Jonnu Smith, Shaq Mason, and Cameron McGrone were present, but they did not practice. In other news, Dalton Keene was limited today. We don't really know exactly, what that injury is or what exactly he's dealing with. We know that he really was not there for OTAs, but is present here for mandatory minicamp. Did get in on action, but again, was not a full participant. Now, N'Keal Harry appeared to get injured today. It was towards the end of practice, so it wasn't in the beginning or in the middle. So he was able to get in still pretty much a full day of practice, but he was grabbing his right calf after a catch and was limping through the remaining plays. And then of course the day was finished. So something to monitor there, but overall, just the Patriots are getting hammered already with just a ton of injuries, especially offensively. Now, the two players that were present yesterday that were practicing or kind of doing a workout for the Patriots, and RJ Prince and Devin Ross were once again present for day two. For day two here, the offense was pretty sloppy for day two of minicamp outside of Mac Jones, at least to start the day. Moving on to the quarterbacks for 11 on 11s, Cam Newton went 5 for 9. Mac Jones went 9 for 13 with 2 interceptions. Jarrett Stidham went 3 for 5. Brian Hoyer didn't get any time. 7 on 7s, Cam Newton went 4 for 8. Mac Jones went 8 for 12. Stidham went 2 for 3. Brian Hoyer again didn't get any snap time. The quarterback drill order went as I just said: Cam Newton, Mac Jones, Jarrett Stidham, then Brian Hoyer. Now, Cam Newton struggled again in his second day of minicamp, got nothing going downfield, and accuracy showing to continue being an issue. Now, despite having those 2 interceptions, Mac Jones was the best quarterback again for day 2. Did really, really good with red zone drills. That's what the offense was really focusing on. He again did finish poorly with those 2 bad plays. That was at the end of practice, but other than that, still the best quarterback here for the second day. Today was a very blitz-heavy day defensively, and Mac Jones looked way more comfortable against the blitz, against pressure overall, than starting quarterback Cam Newton did, along with Jarrett Stidham. Newton would have gotten sacked 4 times. He would have gotten sacked 4 times today if it was actual contact. Now, despite him playing poorly, though, he did finish, the rest of the day and did finish off the session much better. But still just a bad day overall for Cam Newton. Overall, for the offense, working on red zone drills a lot, but it was a lot of thinking for the quarterbacks. And what I mean by that it was a lot of reading the defense, setting your offense, setting your protection, going deeper into the playbook. And Josh McDaniels worked a lot extensively with Mac Jones on that. Moving on to the wide receivers here, Nelson Agholor with another very strong day, balled out no matter who the quarterback was, and a lot of times even bailed these quarterbacks out on some pretty bad throws, going his way. Now, Gunnar Olszewski also had a very nice day. He was consistently open, something that you'll love to hear. He beat D'Angelo Ross at one point. That made D'Angelo Ross fall over. Really, really hoping that Gunnar Olszewski can take that second leap, as a wide receiver. He's able to do it as a special teamer. Really hoping that he can be that next slot receiver for New England as time goes on. Moving on to the tight ends here, Hunter Henry hauled in a nice touchdown from Mac Jones on a stick route. Just good overall to see Hunter Henry in the mix with Jonnu out. I was concerned that with that injury scare, Hunter Henry wasn't going to be, present, but he was. He's still present despite that injury. He's still present despite, him being in OTAs, and overall, Jonnu just isn't. Devin Asiasi is also starting to stand out here with the Patriots, and he stood out again today with a solid practice. He was getting open a fair amount during team drills, and coaches have been applauding, his details to his routes. Now, not much here as the offensive line comes along in the video here, but it was a blitzing day defensively, like I mentioned earlier. Naturally, this offensive line is going to struggle a little bit more. I mean, it's not too surprising. The first team offensive line is the same as it was earlier on with Wynn, Onwenu, Andrews. Actually, it was a little different here because Shaq Mason was out, but Wynn, Onwenu, Andrews, Karras to swap in there at right guard, and then right tackle was Trent Brown. As for the defensive line, Josh Uche once again standing out. Uche would have had a total of 3 sacks, y'all. 3 sacks just for today. Moving on to the linebackers' interceptions, Dante Hightower would have had an interception along with Kyle Van Noy. From what I have heard, that Dante Hightower interception was phenomenal. From what was being reported, he high-pointed the ball really, really well, and his teammates were going nuts. He picked off Mac Jones, and then Van Noy, again, like I said, also picked off Mac Jones, but his was a deflected pass. I mean, they say he, step back 2 steps and then just jumped and hauled that ball in, talking about Hightower here. There was nothing to say here about the corners, but as for safeties, Kyle Duggar had an interception. For pass breakups, Jalen Mills had 3 of them today. Kyle Duggar picked off Cam Newton in a 7-on-7 deep ball covering Kendrick Bourne. Jalen Mills, just overall, very, very strong day. Pass breakups against Harry and Zuber, and he should have picked off Cam Newton, but ultimately he dropped it. And then Adrian Phillips would have had a sack. Now let's enter our third and final day of Patriots mandatory minicamp, and then we're going to get into any last thoughts and just overall thoughts on the entire 3-day recap that I didn't already note here. So, general notes: absent Chase Winovich again, like I mentioned just a little bit ago. Chase Winovich absent the entire minicamp. From what was reported, it isn't anything serious, and he'll be ready to go for training camp. But I don't remember him, being reported to have suffered any type of injury or look like he suffered from an injury. So what is going on with Chase Winovich? I mean, just does not make things look good, with the potential rumors we're hearing around about, hey, could he be traded? But Rashad Berry also absent, Byron Coward also absent, Terez Hall absent, and Stephon Gilmore. For the most part, for these 3 days, it was those same guys being absent. As for the guys who were present but did not participate, Jonnu Smith, Dalton Keene, Anthony Jennings, and Cameron McGrone, pretty much that same list. Jonnu Smith got like a half a practice in, didn't perform in OTAs at all, came in the day before minicamp, plays half of a minicamp, and then is present but doesn't participate in the final 2. Dalton Keene doesn't participate in the final day after being limited the day prior. And then the same thing here with Anthony Jennings and Cameron McGrone, as we are used to. Limited today was Brandon Bolden and Nelson Aguilar, dealing with a knee/calf injury, along with Devin Smith. Sucks to see that, Brandon Bolden's dealing with an injury for the final day here, as, he also was not at OTAs. But at the end of practice, Bill Belichick got the entire team, into just a big group to surround Ernie Adams, and everybody loudly cheered. Guys, this was officially Ernie Adams' last day. I know everyone was saying, he already retired. Why is he still at practice? Did he really retire? But, I guess he was helping them out a little bit this offseason. But, we're being told this was his last official day. So, big shout out to Ernie Adams. A big thank you to Ernie Adams. And, hopefully we'll still be able to see him around in New England from time to time. But as for the quarterbacks, 11 on 11s, Cam Newton, 14 for 17. So a strong day for Cam Newton, as he didn't perform too well the first 2 days. Mac Jones goes 10 for 18 with an interception, 3 drops also. So you gotta keep that one in mind, that partial of those incompletions do go to drops. Jared Stidham, 9 for 12 with an interception, and Hoyer, 2 for 3. 7-on-7s, Cam Newton went 3 for 4, while Jones went 1 for 2. Stidham went 1 for 2. Hoyer got nothing. Quarterback drills order, same as before: Newton, Jones, Stidham, Hoyer. Like I mentioned, Cam with an outstanding bounce back day. Well, I shouldn't say outstanding and gas it up that much, but just a very good bounce back day from after not performing well the first 2 days. His best day overall for the entire spring. And today, he was the best quarterback, not Mac Jones. The only completions he had, surprisingly, were on deep balls, but overall, for his accuracy today, much, much better, and completed most of his passes. And he had really good decision-making today and really good energy overall. I mean, if Cam Newton can perform like this every day, then he's going to be in for a good season, but it's an inconsistency that he has on, hey, which camera are we going to get, that brings that problem up front. Now, overall, Mac Jones did struggle here. It was more so on the 2-minute drills. 2 deep ball misses, also an interception. Did have 1 drop, though, or a couple drops, rather. He was also having some issues when it came to fixing the pass protection. Now, this is something they worked on yesterday, like I mentioned, and he didn't really seem to struggle. So I've actually heard some good things about him being able to read the defense and switch the pass protection. So, I mean, I'm not really sure what went wrong today, but, after those issues, he had a very lengthy conversation with David Andrews, Josh McDaniels. I believe James White also went over, and they were trying to just ultimately cheer him up. Mac Jones, very, very down on himself. The last thing this team needs and the last thing this team wants is for their future quarterback to, lose that confidence. So they went over after a rough day for him and just tried to cheer him up as best as they could. Now, Jarrett Stidham also had a solid day and got more reps towards the end of the day. New England has definitely upgraded their defense from what we have seen. A lot of these quarterbacks are having issues. Although he had a solid day, speaking of Stidham, he did end the day with an interception. So this defense is definitely showing up, and I'm super, super excited to see it. Now, as for the running backs here, James White beat Kyle Van Noy on a wheel route, nicely thrown by Cam Newton. Ramondre Stevenson looks really good at, catching the ball at least, has really soft hands, something I'm really excited to see from him as a pass-catching standpoint. As for wide receivers, Kendrick Bourne had a drop, Isaiah Zuber had a drop, Marvin Hall had a drop. Jacoby Myers and Cam Newton had a good connection on a deep dig route. N'Keal Harry looked fine today after he had that little bit of an injury scare. Wasn't limited, was participating, so everything looks good for him. Not really doing much, but in order for him to make this final roster, he's going to have to show out, and that injury probably would have just bolted that nail in his coffin. So good to see that he is okay. Christian Wilkerson hauled in a nice back of the end zone touchdown and a tight throw for Mac Jones. And then Devin Ross connected nicely on a crossing route thrown by Mac Jones, and then also had another deep connection later on with Jarrett Stidham. Nothing to say here about tight ends. Offensive line, Shaq Mason did return. He got back into the lineup and replaced Ted Karras there at right guard. Defensive line, Devon Godchaux would have had a sack. Henry Anderson also would have had a sack. Linebackers, Josh Uche would have had 2 sacks, while Dante Hightower would have had 1. So if we combine just the last 2 practices, Josh Uche would have 5 sacks already. Now, as for the cornerbacks, interception-wise, Justin Bethel got one on Jarrett Stidham, and then D. Virgin had one on Mac Jones. Pass breakups, J.C. Jackson had one. Justin Bethel also had one. As for the safeties, interception-wise, Adrian Colbert actually got one today here on Mac Jones. And then pass breakups, Kyle Duggar had one. And then there was nothing here, surprisingly, to say about special teams. So that is your recap of the 3-day mandatory minicamp for our New England Patriots for, again, 2021. Now, overall here, some of my thoughts is that there's definitely a lot of work to be done. I think there's just a lot of question marks that this team still has, and I'm super excited to see the team just start to get under wraps as a genuine team, the 53-man roster team that we're going to see for an entire, season come 2021 and hopefully make a deep playoff run. But as of right now, guys are everywhere, and a lot of these guys are making plays. Like, I'm going to be making a 53-man roster projection video, and it's going to be very, very, very tough. And what I mean by that is we're not in the same standpoint that we were in, let's say, a year ago from now, where you kind of knew who your starters were going to be. There wasn't really much of a training camp battle. The Patriots needed any help they could get, but now they're in a very good standpoint where they have so much depth that you're like, well, that guy's started, that guy's started, that guy's started, that. You kind of get to the point where you're at about 60 players that you're like, all of these guys should make the team because they're that talented. They should be on this final roster, but we can only keep 53. So again, I'm more excited for training camp this year than I've been in recent years because there is so much true, genuine battles for guys that we would expect to be a starter that are going to be fighting for roster spots just because they're unable to make it. Some more overall notes, me personally, that I have. The tight ends and Jonnu Smith, obviously with his contract, obviously being an offseason addition, New England's not going to cut or trade him or whatever. He's going to make the final team. Let's see how he does in training camp. So far, not happy with him, not impressed. Showing up really late into the offseason throwing session that Jarrett Stidham was holding, and then not to come to any OTAs, come the day before minicamp, play half a practice, then gets injured, doesn't participate in the other 2. Not a good look on him, and Hunter Henry is definitely showing him up right now. Overall, I know that the Patriots didn't do too much at the wide receiver position, but I'm expecting some bigger things from the receivers this season. Guys like Kendrick Bourne are making really good connections with all of these quarterbacks, especially Cam Newton and Mac Jones, and that's going to be super important on the field. I mean, having chemistry, having that connection is really just as important than, a genuine talent standpoint. And then you have Nelson Agholor really stapling himself in as that potential number one guy, and if he isn't number one, then he's easily going to be number two. Just making these quarterbacks look even better. That's what you need from, a number one receiver, from an offseason addition. And I know that a lot of people were skeptical, including myself, on the addition of Nelson Agholor, but from what we've seen so far, could definitely prove to be a very, very helpful addition. I know that a lot of people are going to really just talk about the quarterbacks for the most part, and understandably so. I do genuinely believe that Cam Newton still does start week one. Mac Jones, while he's showing a lot of great potential, a lot of great poise, he's not ready. He's clearly, guys, not ready to take over week one. I think that with how he's progressing, if the Patriots wanted to go in like mid-season with Mac Jones, I really think that they could. I don't think they have to by any means. And if they don't need to, I would say don't. But he's progressing to a point where I think at that time he could go in if need be. But to say he's going to start week one, I don't think that is a logical standpoint to put out there, especially for Bill Belichick and the Patriots. I really, really do believe that there are some people out there that are hyping Mac Jones up just way, way, way too much. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. He's looking good. He's progressing well, but he's also struggling. He was the best quarterback for 2 days for sure. Obviously, Cam Newton and the others were struggling, and that's not to take anything away from Mac Jones, but statistically, like you can see, he's struggling. He is still trying to figure out how to, switch up pass protection at an NFL level. But really what Mac Jones is showing me is that he's improving each time, and that he's hard on himself. He wants to get better, and he's a perfectionist, and that I think overall, as time goes by, as each and every single practice goes by, we are going to see a better version of Mac Jones. And I don't care where you start, but the fact that we know that each practice you're going to progress, that's exactly what you want to hear. Before we end this video off though, guys, gotta talk about the sponsors of this video and talk about the sponsors of the channel in betonline.ag. Huge shout out to the guys over there doing great things. And I know that when I bet online, I'm trying to have some fun. BetOnline is the number one place I go because it is the most fun. It's the best place to make money. And it is the most safe and reliable. Now, guys, if you don't know BetOnline, BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest ways to bet on all of your sports action. Football might be over, but NBA, college basketball, the NHL, everything is still going on. And BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV with real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline also has you covered for all of the news, scores, and odds, and it's the best way to place your bets, and it's completely free to sign up. All you guys got to do is head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in with the action, and don't forget to use that promo code CLNS50 to receive a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. But guys, recap, Patriots mandatory 3-day minicamp. Next up is going to be training camp. You guys already know your boy is going to be covering that, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you get notified for all of my videos, all of the good things to come, but also so that you know when we go live. You guys have any questions for me, you comment them live. I'm going to answer them live for you guys. You don't want to miss out on any of those, so subscribe, hit the bell notification. But like always, appreciate you guys, love you guys, but go Pats.